Tim Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank and service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign.
Out that this guy doesn't have the limp he pretended to have, doesn't have like a bent hand that he pretended to have, that he's perfectly fine. He struts off into the sunset, and we learn he was the bad guy all along. And I have to tell you, Mark, that is how I'm feeling today about Tim Walz.
What do you get when you mix Tim Walz a microphone and two people with zero tolerance for political circus acts? A verbal demolition so epic, even his teleprompter tried to quit. Greg Gutfeld brings the sarcasm. Megyn Kelly brings the fire. And Tim Walz brings swell confusion. Mostly, if you've ever wanted to see a governor get politically body slammed without anyone breaking a sweat, strap in. This roast is hotter than Walz's approval ratings are cold.
It's back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on D&I.
But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month.
Oh, Tim Walz. The man, the myth, the political piñata with the durability of a wet paper bag in a hurricane. If incompetence had a mascot, it'd wear a North Face jacket, hold a clipboard, and stammer through a press conference like a dad trying to explain TikTok. Minnesota didn't elect a governor. They accidentally hired a substitute gym teacher with a passion for bureaucratic word salad and the charisma of cold oatmeal.
News for Tim Walz on the disastrous performance he delivered, in particular when it comes to his self-described knuckle-headed behavior. This one was that he was in China when the Tiananmen Square disaster unfolded, when hundreds of people were killed.
I have my dates wrong. I was in Hong Kong in China in 1989. That move from Hong Kong into China, it was profound for me. That was the summer of democracy. I said it's where I understood how sacred democracy was. It's what encouraged me, about 15 back and forth with my students, taking them to China. I speak like everybody else speaks. I need to be clear, I will tell you that. I do understand China a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump. Kamala Harris understands China.
The excuse for his lies, Michael, is I speak like everybody.
And just when you thought the bar couldn't possibly drop any lower, Tim Walz rolls in like a fog machine of mediocrity. You know you failed spectacularly when even Greg Gutfeld, the guy who turned sarcasm into an Olympic sport, can't decide if you're an actual governor or just a target mannequin that wandered off the sales floor and into public office.
Trump's getting sworn in. But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month. Oh, Teb, who do you think he's talking to? Like, what is the audience for that?
I don't even know who the audience is. I was confused when I saw the clip. Who the is he talking to? He's operating on some old program. But the big issue here is he's trying to criticize Trump. That was like supposed to be a jab at Trump being an old white guy or whatever. But it just comes back to the fact that Democrats don't understand economics. Because if you look at the moves that Trump is making right now, these are great economic recovery moves.
Megyn Kelly didn't even have to try. She looked at Tim Walz's greatest hits and said, "Oh, this guy. Easy." Like shooting fish in a barrel lift, the fish were already floating upside down and begging for it.
Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
but
this...
how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate.
From 2015 to 2023, which was the date Tim Walz repealed the law requiring life-saving care, 24 babies were born alive in Minnesota after an attempted abortion. Think of how horrific that is.
Let's start with the policy masterpiece known as Tim Tries to Govern While Blinking into the Void. His version of leadership is basically a Yelp review for failure. Too slow, too loud, and you regret spending time there. Every time he opens his mouth, it feels like your brain is buffering. If leadership were Wi-Fi, Tim Walz is that one bar you get in the basement where you have to stand on a chair holding your phone to the ceiling. But oh no, Walz doesn't stop at being bad. He's got range. He's like a Renaissance disaster. Education botched it. Public safety, mysteriously allergic. The economy. He treats it like a piñata blindfolded, swinging wildly, hoping something good comes out while candy flies directly into the wood chipper. When crime started skyrocketing like Elon Musk's ego, Tim Walz responded with all the urgency of someone ordering a latte with extra foam. It was like, wow, the house is on fire quick. Let's have a listening session and brainstorm adjectives. Meanwhile, Minnesotans were dialing 911 and getting voicemail music composed by a raccoon with a synth.
Literally the dumbest administration of all time. Why is he talking?
It really is the ultimate clown show. And I said this in the 5. He's a clown without a circus. He's
doesn't even need makeup.
He's roaming the terrain. Is there some carnival that I could work for?
Yeah.
I'll wash your windows.
He's a rogue clown.
Yes.
Who is just an inconsequential footnote to vice presidential history.
Yes.
No one will remember his name on trivia night, and that's going to be in 3 months from now.
And let's not forget the riots. Oh, the majestic chaos of Tim Walz's response to public unrest, a Shakespearean tragedy if Shakespeare forgot how to write, dropped acid, and used sock puppets instead of characters, while cities burned walls, was holding press conferences so vague even a magic 8-ball was like, bro, you need to make a decision. Greg Gutfeld watched that mess and basically said, this guy governs like a stoned mall cop who wandered into a war zone and decided the best course of action was to take a nap in the food court. And honestly, that might have been an upgrade. Tim Walz doesn't manage crisis-y vibes with them. He sits in the passenger seat while the car careens off a cliff, offering gentle suggestions like, have we tried turning the ignition off? And on again. Meanwhile, the rest of the state is screaming, grab the wheel, Tim! But nope, he's busy writing a strongly worded email to himself.
Doug Brunt, my husband, he doesn't react to that much in the news. And so when it gets his attention, I know that something's gone either very right or very wrong. And he did not like this clip from Tim Walz reacting to the Taylor Swift news. Watch.
Taylor Swift signed childless cat lady. I have to get your response to that, Mr. Governor.
All those things, I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner. Look, Swifties, you heard it. We know that it's there. That was eloquent, and it was clear. And that's the type of courage we need in America to stand up.
And my husband said he looks like Elmer Fudd. That's what he looks like, Elmer Fudd. Like there's something off about this.
Megyn Kelly, who can turn smugness into a tactical nuke, took one look at his record and basically transformed into a verbal buzzsaw. She treated Walz's career like a Pinterest craft project gone horribly wrong. Let's take a little glitter. From his education plan, glue it to the crumbling infrastructure, and throw it all into the dumpster fire he calls public safety. You almost feel bad for the guy until you remember that he ran twice. He looked at his own disastrous first term, gave himself a gold star, and said, yeah, let's do that again. That's not confidence. That's delusion with a side of taxpayer-funded Kool-Aid. Under Walz's reign, Minnesota became a living escape room. You enter, everything's confusing, the clues make no sense, and the guy in charge is standing in the corner yelling, let's trust the process. What process, Tim? The one where logic goes to die and accountability takes an unpaid sabbatical.
It's back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on D&I.
But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month.
The state's budget? Oh, that's a whole sitcom in itself. Walz managed to take a surplus and spend it like a college freshman with a new credit card. Except instead of pizza and video games, he blew it on committees, consultants, and whatever. Magical Bean Factory, he thinks, grows government programs. Greg Gutfeld joked that if Walz handled your household finances, you'd be living in a van behind a burned-down Arby's budgeting for air. The man couldn't prioritize if the choices were cure cancer or buy a golden stapler for a task force about feelings. And his COVID response, Wuchef's kiss of disaster. Imagine locking people inside their homes for months and then acting shocked when the economy faceplants like a toddler in roller skates. Walz ran the pandemic like someone who read half of a Wikipedia article, panicked, and then banned everything except depression and bad Wi-Fi.
Gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on D&I.
But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month.
Small businesses were practically begging for mercy, and Walz was handing out guidelines thicker than the Bible.
Small businesses were practically begging for mercy, and Walz was handing out guidelines thicker than the Bible with just as much fire and brimstone. Restaurants got more updates than an iPhone in beta testing. You can open, but only if you stand on one leg and chant the governor's name while sanitizing your eyebrows. But here's the kicker: while everyone else was masking up and hunkering down, guess who mysteriously forgot to follow his own rules now and then? Oh, yes, the classic rules for thee, but not for me maneuver. At this point, hypocrisy should be its own cabinet position under the Walz administrations. Secretary of Oops, I Did It Again.
How could they have a Jewish man as her running mate? Bad enough she's married to a Jewish man. This is how I'm sure they're thinking. I mean, Walz, on the other hand, is from a state that just changed his flag to represent that of Somalia. So it's a win. Ms. Harris reportedly calling Governor Walz earlier today to inform him of her, I'm putting her in quotes, first big decision. Who the hell knows who made this choice for her? He's the favorite of Nancy Pelosi. He was the favorite of Bernie Sanders. Does that tell us anything?
Megyn Kelly had a field day with that one. She basically turned into the human version of a courtroom cross-examination, throwing side eyes so sharp you could Juliana Carrot. So, you said lockdowns were essential, but you went to DAC. Fascinating. Would you like to borrow a shovel to dig that hole deeper, or are you just going to freestyle? Even the National Guard got dragged into Walz's circus of confusion. He activated them late, hesitated, then praised himself like a guy who burned the toast, scraped it off, and called it artisanal. Meanwhile, Gutfeld's over there doing the equivalent of a political stand-up roast. Tim Walz calls that leadership high, call it wishful thinking, wrapped in cowardice.
Walz lost, but one of them, Politico says, is like Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is his wide eyes. That humans would widen their eyes to convey that danger is close. What emotion are you getting from that?
Sorry. Still. That was
There's something magical about a governor who can alienate both progressives and conservatives in the same week. Walz tried to straddle the fence so hard he got splinters in places science hasn't discovered yet. 1 minute, he's promising progressive reform. The next, he's throwing bureaucratic spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Spoiler alert, nothing stuck, but the wall is now a mess. Let's talk about education, shall we? Minnesota schools under Walz became a choose-your-own-adventure novel written entirely in passive voice. Test scores plunged, teacher shortages ballooned, and Walz responded with wait for ETA task force. Of course, because nothing screams action like 17 meetings and a PowerPoint about feelings. Megyn Kelly said, watching Walz talk education is like watching a magician pull policy ideas out of his hat. Except the hat is on fire and the rabbit is suing for emotional distress. He talks a big game about equity and access, but when the bell rings, Kids still can't read at grade level, and teachers are leaving faster than cats at a dog show.
Right, I have a fourth grader, rising fifth. And if there were ever a tampon dispenser machine in his bathroom, I would personally go and rip it down, like we saw those kids do in Virginia last year. And what will likely be a massive issue for Governor Walz, which is not being covered by the mainstream today, he is being accused of misleading voters on his military service and dodging combat service.
And don't get started on transportation. Roads, potholes, public transit. Walz's plan seems to be ignore it and hope the snowplow ferry fixes everything. Meanwhile, Minnesota drivers are out there navigating asphalt craters so deep they have their own zip code. He tried to greenwash the whole thing too, promising climate-forward investments while watching every electric bus proposal die like a houseplant in his office. You know it's bad when your green policy has less energy than your streetlights. But hey, at least his press conferences are great if you enjoy interpretive dithering. Every time he opens his mouth, it's like a TED Talk given by someone who forgot the topic and just started describing their lunch. He uses 30 words to say absolutely nothing, and by the end, you're left wondering if you accidentally tuned into a meditative audiobook.
Not reporting Walz's loss, but mourning it. Now, the truth is that a VP debate is like a colonoscopy. It's important and necessary, but that doesn't mean you want to watch it.
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Even a deer in the headlights is screaming, "Get the out of the way, dude!"
Gutfeld laughed so hard, he nearly needed CPR. Tim Walz makes me nostalgic for dial-up internet at least that made progress eventually. And how about that one Minnesota slogan he clings to, like a drowning man clutching a leaky pool noodle? Sounds nice, right? Until you realize it's just branding duct tape slapped over a state divided by bad policy, rising crime, and the constant hum of residents Googling how to move to Wisconsin without losing dignity. Megyn Kelly couldn't even pretend to take it seriously. She pointed out that the only one Minnesota happening is the collective eye roll when Walz walks up to a podium. Even his own eyebrows seem to be trying to escape his face. Tim Walz governs like a man who accidentally wandered into leadership, got mistaken for someone qualified, and decided, well, might as well ride this out until someone notices. The only thing he's truly good at is surviving press backlash, by smiling awkwardly and passing the buck like it's a relay race, and yet somehow he keeps getting invited back to the table. It's like watching a contestant on a cooking show burn the chicken, drop the sides, and then win the round because the judges are too polite to admit it was all awful. While his intentions were seasoned beautifully, they say, as the state spirals into chaos with a garnish of apathy.
And I saw a man with a beard, just a guy with a beard, or that expression, believe me, the pepper spray would be all sprayed all over Walz. That is the freak, not J.D. Vance.
Yeah, well, Walz's expression throughout the entire time did not convey steadiness. No. Like, almost like unsteady weirdness.
At this point, Tim Walz isn't even a governor. He's a metaphor, a walking, talking metaphor for everything wrong with modern politics. Bland, cautious, optics-driven, allergic to accountability, and so focused on pleasing everyone that he ends up doing absolutely nothing well. So here we are watching Minnesota play a never-ending game of how bad can it get, while Tim Walz fiddles on his government-issued violin, writing policies that sound like they were co-edited by a committee of confused squirrels, and Gutfeld Megyn there just standing by, popcorn in hand, narrating the fall of House Walz like it's the final season of a badly written drama. The only thing missing is a laugh track. And honestly, even that might be too generous because, with Tim Walz in charge, Minnesota didn't get leadership. It got a cautionary tale with sideburns. And now, the rest of us get to watch hand laugh and pray anyone this malfunctioning bureaucratic robot before he tries running for president